Hello, and welcome to today's devotional. I've been over this Christmas season. I've been combination of busy and taking vacation days at the same time, which is a weird mix. So my devotionals are a little less often over these next few weeks. That'll still be the case, but I'm going to try and get them in whenever I can. And so today we're back with verse 19 of chapter 7 of Proverbs. And the Lord willing, I'll be on again later this week, but we'll keep the schedule as best we can. At any rate, let's look at today's devotional. We're in, as I said, chapter 7 of Proverbs, verse 19. And it's always important just for us to look at the context of Scripture so we know what we're talking about. Many of the Proverbs, especially as we get after chapter 10, are very single little proverbial statements. But at this point, there's part of a story. So here in chapter 7, the image is given to us of a man teaching his son, and it's of course meant to be God teaching us, but it's teaching his son the dangers of having an affair with another man's wife. And so he tells this story to his son, and of course we've been gleaning just different truths about how temptation works in general, and with hopefully not missing the bigger picture of having an affair with somebody is not a good thing. That's an evil. It's not a good thing. But just looking at the individual verses, learning a little bit about what can I learn with that in general. And so that's what we're going to do. And so here in verse 19, that story is being told. And the point of the story we're in is he tells us his son, there's this young man who went off to find this woman to have this affair. And the woman came out to meet him, and they end up having this affair. And part of the story is where she is trying to convince this young man to come home with her. And of course, it's not hard to convince him. That's why he went looking for her. But that's the idea. So verse 19 is the woman speaking to the man, saying, "Come, let's have our scandalous rendezvous." And so that's what it's doing. And so in the middle of that, she says this. So verse 19 says, "For my husband is not at home; he has gone on a long journey." Now, of course, it goes on, but we're going to deal with just the one verse. So that I'll read it again. Her argument to this young man about why they can have this affair is, "For my husband is not at home; he has gone on a long journey." So all of her attempts to seduce this young man, she's giving all of the exotic, the hints and the flirtations to try and convince him. But then she gives the reason why it's safe, right? She's saying, it's no one will know. My husband won't know, so it's safe. We can do this. Is what she's saying, which is of course quite a lie. Not that he's not away, but that it's safe. The idea that it's safe is a lie, and that's usually part of the temptation thing is when Satan wants to convince you through another person or whatever to do something sinful, usually try to make you feel like you can do this. It won't, so if we think back to the Garden of Eden, the very first temptation that ever came to humans, Satan came to them and was tempting them, and God had warned them if they did this certain thing, then they would die. And so Satan says to them, "You won't die." Right? No, actually, it's going to turn out wonderful. You're going to be like God. And so that's always seems to be part of the package of, it won't go bad. It's going to be okay. You're really safe to do this thing. And that's part of the way the temptation works. But I also thought from this verse, something we should think about is this idea of what we do when we think we're in private, when we think there's no one watching. Now, in this case, these two were referring to her husband. They thought her husband wasn't going to find out, right? So we can do this safely because he won't know. And it's interesting in life to ask ourselves this question once in a while, to really honestly ask ourselves this question: what would I do if I thought no one would ever know, right? It's a very revealing question. And you can ask it in general, or you can ask it about a specific thing. You can say, this thing that I'm tempted to do, would I do it if people were going to know that I did it? Whatever it may be, whether it be an affair like this, or whether it be stealing something or telling a lie, or whatever the case may be. If you think you could do it with and absolutely know for sure you would never get caught, would you do it? And that's an interesting and very revealing thing about our own character. You got to be honest with yourself and say, would I do it? Because if your answer is yes, then you don't have a moral code. You simply have a self-preservation code. The only reason you're not doing it is because someone might find out and there would be negative consequences. And that's not a moral code. That's simply, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to have negative consequence, right? But a person with a genuine moral code would say, I don't care if somebody finds out or not. It's wrong to do, so I won't do it. Even if I could get away with it, even if I could stay anonymous, I still wouldn't do it. So you can ask yourself, like I said, on a number of things. When you tell a lie, for instance, you buy into the myth that if I tell this lie, I'm going to be good enough at it that this person won't know I'm lying. They'll never discover that I'm lying, so I can do that, right? And yet we get caught sometimes in our lies, and then it's like, oh, how embarrassing, and because you got caught doing something wrong. You thought you were going to get away with it. You didn't. It's the same thing with stealing. The person thinks when they steal, very, very rarely, I suppose, anybody would ever steal something saying, I'm going to get caught for this. They're usually thinking, I'm going to get away with this. No one will ever know, right? And I think that's part of what happens when someone even goes as far as murder, right? I can kill this person. I can get away with it. I'll find a way to avoid getting caught. And if you ever find yourself thinking that way, then somewhere inside of yourself, you don't think that thing is wrong. You've decided you don't have a moral code on this issue. You just want to avoid the consequences. Well, that's not very good. Now, as Christians, we want to be people who have good, strong moral code. What Proverbs is teaching is that wisdom comes through a fear of God. And it's not merely a pragmatic thing. It's not just, oh, if the husband's home, you shouldn't do this. He's giving this story to say there's a consequence. But the actual teaching of the book of Proverbs is that we should be the kind of people who never want to go down that road anyway, because it's not a righteous road to go down. It's not a good thing. In our day and age, something has occurred that has made this sense of anonymity almost a plague in our society, and that's the rise of the internet. Through the rise of the internet, more and more people feel that they can act on these internal impulses, these not good things, and have absolute anonymity in doing so. They think the internet is a place where I can remain anonymous. So they will say things on a social media that they would never say face to face with a person, or they will go to certain websites. They would never want anybody to know that they went to those websites, or they would be involved in some sort of, supporting some sort of cause. They would never want anybody to know they're supporting, and so on. And there's this sense of anonymity that has come to our society through the internet, which is unfortunate, but it's also very revealing, because when you do through the internet, thinking you aren't observed, what you do through there is you reveal what you really believe is right and wrong. And it can be sometimes distressing when we think that way. And you might even think, oh, it's not that I think it's right or wrong. Well, if you would do it, then you must not think it's wrong to do, because surely you wouldn't do something you thought was wrong to do, right? Well, it's an interesting thought. But here's the thing. It is a myth, because anonymity is a myth for numerous reasons, but for two really good ones. One is that God is always, always watching. You cannot escape the gaze of God. He is all present, right? So we use this theological term, omnipresent. Just means he's everywhere. There is no place. Another scripture puts it in poetic form and says, where can I go that you're not? And he talks about, can I go to the ends of the earth? Or can I, even if I make my bed in the land of the dead, still you're there. It's like this idea that there is simply no way to ever escape the gaze of God. And he doesn't just look at your actions. He looks at your heart. In fact, God makes this clear in another area in Samuel, the book of Samuel in the Bible. He makes this clear that humans, we only look at the outward. We just see what a person does. So somebody might be able to pull the wool over our eyes. But God, it says, looks at the heart. He sees right through the physical, right to the motives and the reasons you do things. And so there simply is no time or place. There's no action or event. There's no motive that you have that God is not completely and absolutely observing it and seeing it. And so the myth of anonymity, it really is a myth. We know that as believers in God, we know that the day will come, that judgment day is a real thing. There is a day when we have to give account to God for the choices we made and for the reasons we made those choices. And so we should always be striving to move to a place of true morality, a place where we go, I want to live righteously, even if no other human ever sees what I do. I know that God is going to judge it. So I want to be righteous, not just outside, but inside, right? Like not just actions, but motives as well. But further to that, so there's that truth, but then there's also this important truth of that we're actually rarely able to keep from being found out. There's just this thing about living in this world that eventually what is inside of you does come out. Now, not necessarily every single event. Maybe you have very cleverly disguised some theft you did, or some lie you told, or some affair you had. Maybe you were able to somehow disguise that enough that other humans didn't detect it. But the nature of your heart that allowed you to do that, you can't hide that forever. There's just something about humans that what's inside eventually does come out. You can't wear the mask forever. The anonymity is at best partial. Eventually, what motivated you to do one thing that was wrong in what you thought was in secret will motivate you to do another thing that is wrong that you think will also be in secret. And eventually, you're going to either get caught or you're going to stop caring about getting caught. And so it comes out, and it just does. So that's another reason why we should really strive to not just allow the myth of anonymity to decide what we will and will not do. And then the last thing I want to say on this is having a strong godly moral code is important, just because of the last person who knows what you did. And that's you. You always know. You're always there. And your character, for your own sake, you should want it to be a moral character. It should be that we would all find ourselves in a scenario where wrong is a temptation, but we go, no, I don't want to be the person that did that thing. Even if nobody finds out, even if God somehow didn't find out, I don't want to be the guy that did that thing. And that's because you will know what you did. And you got to live with yourself. There's no getting away from that. And so it's better to choose to be a righteous person, even in secret, and maybe especially in secret, because a person who's righteous when no one's looking, well, that's a pretty righteous guy. That's a pretty good person right there. So that's my encouragement for you today. I hope it's useful to you. I do pray that God help us all to do it, and that we be moral people, even when we think no one knows. God bless. God willing, I'll be back, I think, on Friday. I think will be the next one. And so at any rate, whichever day it is, we'll see you then. Have a good day.